Good morning. This is VirtualPBX-admin training. I do apologize. It looks like there was an accidental earlier stream that should be removed. So this is the actual official uh, training stream, and hopefully that other one won't be showing up in the future. All right. The training lasts about an hour and a half, give or take. We do record these trainings, so you can leave if you can't stay for the entire time and come back later. That also allows you to share the YouTube link with other staff members who also need to be system admins. Feel free to make use of YouTube's chat feature to ask questions about a feature as I go over it, and I'll try to make sure I circle back to it. You should also see in the show notes some other links to other videos or to our support page, and I'll refer to those as needed. They do come up at times as fairly important. But let's go ahead and get started. So to get logged in, you need to go to dash.virtualpbx.com. Right? That's dash.virtualpbx.com. I do recommend bookmarking this page for system admins. To get logged in, we need three pieces of information. The first is your username. That's your email address, and it should be in all lowercase letters. Your password, which should have been emailed to you, and that is case sensitive. And then lastly, your account name, right? So typically your organization name, your business name, could be your own name. And that is not case sensitive at all. And then you would click on the sign in button. Now, if for some reason that doesn't work, just above the sign in bar, there's a forgot your info link, and you can click on that, flips the box around. You still need that email address, and that's your unique identifier. And then we need one of these two pieces of information. So we need either the account name, right? So the business name, or a phone number on the account. And that's a phone number that your customers will call, right? Then you would click on reset password. This sends you an email, right? In the body of the email, there's a link. When you click on the link, it temporarily logs you in, basically, so you can change your password. If you try to do anything else, it logs you back out. And once you finish changing your password, it also logs you back out and takes you back to the sign in page. Go ahead and get signed in. And you can always click on the remember me, so that way you don't have to remember your information, because we all have way too many usernames and passwords. Now, I'm using a test account that I log into on a regular basis. So now when I log in, I get taken right to my dashboard page. If it's your first time logging in, you're not taken here immediately. Instead, you're taken to your user account page. You can always get to your user account page by clicking on your name. So look at the top of the screen, and just to the right of center, see my name there. I click on it. But now I have this big pop-up. So this, for instance, is where you would change your password. Like if you're able to log in successfully that first time, you can come in here and change it, because the system-generated passwords are difficult and confusing and not easy to remember. You can also change the time and date display, as well as your time zone and language for your user. Now, as a system admin, over here on the left, you have the account level settings, right? So you can change who the technical contact is, also the entire time zone and language for your entire staff. On the left, also, we have add-ons. So your system admins can activate any of the add-ons for your account, right? So these are additional features to increase functionality on your account, right? Versus having to contact us to like change your account plan. You can see I have several of these activated. Now, some of them may increase your bill. And if that happens, there'll be a pop-up saying your bill will be increased by X amount per month. You have to click on that OK button to confirm that you're okay with that charge, and then the feature is enabled. Now, in the case that you are interested in several of these features and they all have a charge, at that point, I would recommend contacting our services team, right? Account services at virtualpbx.com, to see if it actually makes more sense to change your plan altogether to get some of these features already included, right? Depending on what the price breaks are. System admins can also click here on the left to the billing portal, and this link will actually take you to the billing portal. You'll have to set your email address, and you'll get sent a PIN number to get logged in. That is where you would see your invoices, and you can update your payment method. This is relatively new. Any system admin can click on cancel account and go through the process to go ahead and close the account. Once it loads, right, we would click on the cancel button and follow the on-screen steps. Once that is done, the system will automatically cancel the account by the next billing date, right? So it'll basically, you'll have until your next bill comes due where the account is still active. After that, it's automatically closed. If you need to cancel the account immediately, then you need to reach out to our billing team, and that's billing@virtualpbx.com. When you're done here, go ahead and click close over here to the top right, and now you'll be back here on the dashboard. So up the top, again, click your name at any time, get back to that user account page. To the right of your name, most of you will have this D&D toggle, right? Do not disturb. So mine is currently active, meaning I'm not taking calls, right? If I click on it, it'll switch it so it's mostly black. Now I'm taking calls. Now, if for some reason you don't have the D&D, there's actually the one reason you would not have the D&D toggle next to your name is if you are part of the call center, right? Part of the ACD queues. Those two features don't work well together. So once you're assigned to the queues, the D&D toggle is automatically removed. Next, we have this little phone icon here. This opens up a new tab and takes you to webphone.virtualpbx.net. If you have a web phone device on your user, you can use your Dash login on this page to log into the web phone, and this allows you to use Chrome or Firefox on a computer to make and receive calls. Okay, so it's a type of web phone. The little chat bubble here, this will open up a new tab and take you to virtualtext.app. This has its own login information that's completely different from your Dash login. And this is available once you've enabled the virtual text feature. Right? This allows for texting or SMS for your business. The little question mark icon here, this opens up the chat bubble at the bottom right of your browser so you can speak to one of our support team members. Excuse me. The three horizontal line icon here, this is the menu icon. I think in some of our documentation, it might also refer to it as the hamburger icon. This takes you to other Dash features on the account. We'll touch on most of these, at least in some detail, but the vast majority of our training will be on this top one here, the dashboard, like 95% or more. And then we have a little arrow icon here to the right. That's your logout button. Gonna skip down here down to the middle. I've got total users. I have 3, right? So I have 3 people on my account who make and receive calls. Most of our plans are based on a per user basis, meaning if I added more users, my bill is going to increase. Then I have total devices. I have 12, and then a breakdown. So first up is cell phone. So you can add a cell phone or a landline phone number as a device on your account. And that means we can send the calls to your cell phone number. You can pick it up and answer the call. At that point, though, you can't transfer the call to another staff member on your account. It's just an endpoint. Next up is the soft phone. Excuse me. The soft phone is a software application that acts as a phone, right? It uses your internet connection to make and receive calls, so it's a VoIP phone. In this total here, oh, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the web phone. So again, that's that Chrome or Firefox. They keep changing the order on me. So soft phone, again, that's an application, right? This can be the VirtualPBX soft phone app. This can be a third-party soft phone app. But again, it's designed to use your internet connection to make and receive calls. And then here we have the SIP phone. This is a hardware device, right? So it's a physical phone, connects typically via an Ethernet cable to get to your router, then out to the internet. And beyond that, it acts like an old phone that, you pick up the handset, dial the number, you make a call out. Down here, I've got unregistered devices, and I have one, and that means I've turned off or disabled one of my devices here on my dashboard. Total numbers, I have 15 phone numbers on this account. Your account includes at least some amount of phone numbers as part of your monthly plan price. Typically, it's like a main number and a local number per user. I would refer you to the pricing page just to verify for what your plan offers. You can also reach out to the services team to verify. But after that, you're going to be paying a monthly charge per phone number per month, right? So, right, uh, by that plan logic, right, one main number plus local numbers per user, I should only have numbers as part of my allocation. So I am paying an overage on 11 of my phone numbers here. I've got excuse me, two breakdowns. The first one here is assigned numbers and spare numbers. Assigned number is a number in use, right? So someone can dial one of these numbers, an assigned number, and expect to speak to someone or leave a voicemail, join a conference, or be sending a fax. Right? Spare number counts towards my allotment of phone numbers. I'm just not currently using it. Whether that's because I'm about to open a new store in a different city, it has its own area code. So I have two different phone numbers. I grab the number ahead of time so I can start producing my marketing materials, right? But I don't want the number in service yet because no one's there to answer the call for that location. Or, you know, let's say, colleague Bob retired. He had a phone number that went direct to his user. Well, I could take that number out of service since Bob's not here to take calls anymore for it. This other breakdown here, USDID and US toll free. US toll free is actually US Canada toll free, right? An 800 number, 888, all the way down to 833. USDID is just a US local number. So if you have a phone number, say in Los Angeles, California, USDID, just as if you had one in Grapevine, Texas. You can have international phone numbers on your account. If you're interested in adding some, you would want to email our porting team, and that's PORTING at virtualpbx.com. They need to know the city and country that you're interested in getting a number in. They'll let you know if that's possible and if there's any additional documentation that's necessary. Right? That documentation is coming from the country in question. Conference bridges, two. That means I've enabled the conference feature on two of my users, right? So two of my users can host or moderate a conference. Going to go over here towards the top right. My main number blocks here. So I've got these four phone numbers here. These numbers are going to the same location on my system, and in this case, they're going to be playing the same main greeting. Down below that, I have my conference room number or conference number. You can have multiple conference numbers if you want, but they're all going to the same set of conference rooms. And then you'll be prompted to enter the conference room number and PIN number. This was a number that even your staff members would have to call to join a conference. Fax box number, you can have one main fax box number, and this is your inbound fax number. Once you have a number assigned here, you can edit a fax box that's associated with it. So you can allow for outbound faxing if you want to make use of that feature. Then we've got the company directory. There's two download links here. The first one is CSV. It's just a spreadsheet file. You download it and use your favorite spreadsheet program. It's going to have all your staff members' names, their email addresses, and their devices and their extension numbers. Right? So if you want to print out of everyone's extensions, you can do that. The softphone download is for use with the VirtualPBX desktop softphone application. Right? So if you use our app on a Mac or Windows PC, you can download this file, then upload it to the VirtualPBX softphone on your computer. And on your softphone, you'll see your other staff members in terms of you'll see their name, in your contact list. And you'll be able to see the status of their VirtualPBX soft phones, right? So if everyone is just using the VirtualPBX soft phone as your devices, you can tell who's on a call and who's not. Right now, if my colleague Mike is on a call, but he's on a call using his Yealink phone from my soft phone, I'm not going to be able to know that. Right? I can only tell if he's using his VirtualPBX soft phone. the Virtual PBX store. This opens up a new tab, takes you to store.virtualpbx.com, and that's where you would go to order, say, a VoIP phone. And then here you have the account realm. Every account has its own account realm. It's one of the three pieces of information you would need to program or provision a third-party soft phone, right? So you're using somebody else's app. It's also used for outbound faxing, which I'll get into when I get more into faxing. We're gonna go back up here to the top. Right here it says VPBX New Hire Sandbox. Just to the right of that, I've got this caller ID button. Unfortunately, this pull down doesn't work in my streaming software here, but this allows you to select any of your main numbers, or any of the 4 numbers I have in my main number block. Whichever one I select, that becomes my default number for the account. So for instance, any VoIP phones on my account by default are going to use this 775 number as their outbound caller ID. Right, and then so you can choose any of your main numbers, and then you would click on Save Changes. All right, then we got the hold music button here. So first up, what this hold music is, it's after a call was coming to the system and reached one of your staff members' phones, right? Your staff member picks up the call, starts talking to the customer, and then they press hold on their VoIP phone. That's when this hold music file plays. So it's after it's already reached somebody. But here you can upload your own .wav or .mp3 files up to 1 megabyte in size. Like a 1 megabyte MP3 is roughly 5 minutes. I generally recommend recording in mono, not in stereo, just so you can have that longer duration file. And then you would click the browse button to find the file on your device, click the up arrow icon, and then click on Save Changes. And this will become the default hold music for your entire staff. Now, hours here, this last button, is actually part of main number. I don't like setting up the main number until I have everything set up in terms of destinations on the account. So with that in mind, over here on the left, I'm going to click on Users, a little person with the desk icon. It's about halfway down on the left. So here I see my users on the account. The people with the little blue suit icon, right? Those are my system admins. They can make all the changes I'm talking about here. Dante, who's just got the little gray person icon, he's just a standard user, so he's got very limited access. In fact, he can basically check his voicemail and like set up call forwarding. Right? He can't make any of the changes we're talking about. Up here at the top, add user. You click on that button, it's going to open up a big old pop-up eventually. There we go. And you basically need to fill out the form, right? So first name, last name, right? Just the system wants some sort of text here. The email address used for login, this one, it needs to be unique for each user. And so you can't reuse an email address for multiple staff members. This email is how the system communicates with your staff, right? So like a voicemail is left, right? That's the email address that the system sends the voicemail notification to. Same with password resets. Speaking of the password, here is where you would create the password for the user, right? And usually, you know, I recommend just have like a generic password that you make for new users and just tell them, hey, change it when you get logged into something you can remember. The main extension number, the system starts you off with extension 1000, right? So it's going to recommend to you the next extension starting with 100. You don't have to follow that. Like, let's say you have a new department. So you can say, hey, new department people, I'm starting off with extension 500, and then add a fourth digit for 5001. I generally recommend four-digit extensions. That just gives you a lot of versatility and room for growth, as well as it saves 0 through 9 for your menu options off of your virtual receptionist. Right? You only have so many options on the dial pad. And you see here, 5001 is already in use. And now, so I just changed it to 5002. All right. Here, create a voicemail box for the user. By default, the system will automatically create a voicemail box for this person. this voicemail box is intrinsically tied to the user, right? So if I created this user, I add a VoIP phone that gets registered, that person can pick up their VoIP phone, dial *98 from their VoIP phone. It's going to log them into this voicemail box that was created with their user. At that point, that first time logging over the phone that way, the system will walk them through creating a voicemail box PIN number, as well as creating their voicemail box greeting. They'll also have the option to go into their personal settings and record their name, which is what the system uses for the dial by name directory or the user directory. Right, here's your option to include this new user in the company directory. Right, just put a check to activate. You can always change this later. Third option here, send emails to an alternate address. So if you want the system emails that get sent to this user be sent to a different email address than the one that they use for login, you would put a check mark here and then put that different email address on the box provided. And this is something that you can always adjust later. And then lastly, this last option here, send credentials to the user. I personally recommend checking this. So that way, when you click on create user or create user and add another, either one, this new user is created on the account and then they're sent an email welcoming them to the Dash account, as well as having their login information. All right. So once you've added a user, you can click on their name. If you need to, you can change their name, like if you had an unfortunate typo or someone changed their name, say, after they got married. Here's your option to change their credentials, right? You click on the link here. There we go, right? You can change their email address. You can change their password. You also have the option here to click the link right there. Kind of hard to see. This will send them the password reset email, right? And then you would click on Save Changes. Here you can change their voicemail box PIN number. It's actually a temporary change. Just enter 4 digits and save changes. So for instance, they're out of the office unexpectedly and you need to check their voicemails. All right, here's your option to send emails to an alternate address. Right, here's the option to be in the user directory or not. Over here on the right, this pull down next to the person icon, this is where this pull down allows you to change an admin to a user or a user into an admin. If you're the only user on the account, you're the admin, so please don't change yourself to a user. The little time clock icon here, this allows you to change the time zone specific to this user, right? So that way their voicemail timestamps have the correct time for them. A little flag icon, this allows you to change the display language for the specific user. You have English, French, German, or Russian. The ringing timeout, the default is 20 seconds. That's plenty of time to send calls to a VoIP phone or a landline. If the user is only using a cell phone, you'd want to increase this to 30 seconds, possibly as much as 45 seconds. Just in general, setting calls to, say, a landline, easy peasy, right? Call goes to the telecom, they send the call straight to the phone because they know exactly where it is, right? Call comes to the mobile telephone or the cell phone provider, right? The cell phone provider first has to find the cell phone, right? They ping the cell phone towers, then they send the call through. That delay, that time to find the cell phone in question is why here you would need additional ring time for calls going to a VoIP phone. The extension box for a user, right? You can add additional extensions for a user, right? They can have multiple if they need to. Then we have a phone number box for the users. So users can have their own phone numbers. When you add a phone number directly to a user, that phone number is available 24/7. It does not have hours of operation or holidays. So something to keep in mind there. You've got two options. Add from spare numbers, right? So add one of the numbers you're not currently using, or buy numbers, which is just basically saying adding new numbers to the account, right? You're not going to be billed immediately for adding a new number. So add from spare, when you click on the link here, it shows your available numbers, and you would just click on the box in front of the number and then click add selected, and it would show up here, and then you would click on save changes. Right? Since I didn't save changes, it's no longer there. It's back as a spare number. Now, by numbers, you have choice of local or toll free. We'll start with toll free. Choose the prefix you want to work with, and then click on search. The system's going to go through and look for the available or readily available phone numbers in this particular prefix. You can scroll down and more numbers will generate. Click add next to any number you like, right? And you can add multiple for most locations. Now, at this point, have not reserved the number, right? And I haven't completed the process, so there's no way to say it's mine, right? So if I get called away, and let's say it's an hour later and I come back, it's possible when I click by numbers, someone may have picked this number themselves, went through the whole process, and they actually have the number and I can't get it now. But if I just click by numbers now, likely no one has taken the number in that time I was talking. So the system is verifying the number is truly there, and now it's added to my account. Right? And again, I would click on Save Changes. If I don't click Save Changes, this number would just be added to my spare numbers. Locals, similar, except that you need to know the area code that you want to work with. Do a search, and again, you'll be prompted with numbers. Actually, let's go back. Oops. All right. So actually here, let's yeah. All right. So any prefix, right, or any area code, you can get this message. I chose the 800 because that's the original toll-free prefix, so there's hardly ever any available. So when you get this message, for toll-free, you just use one of the other toll-free prefixes, right? If you get it for a local phone number, then what you would want to do is do a search for that area code, like use your favorite search engine and do, say, like area code 310 overlay, right? That will tell you another area code that covers that same geographic area, and then you can look for that. So 310 is Los Angeles, right? The overlay for that is 424. So there's additional phone numbers you can pick. Other than that, same process, right? Add the number you like, click by numbers, and then the system will add it to the account. And here you go. Now, there's this little gear icon that you may have noticed. If you click on it, you've got a couple of options. First is caller ID. First up, outbound caller ID name or scene name. In the box here to the right, you can enter up to 15 characters. It counts spaces as part of that 15, and that's what we associate with on your phone number, right? So when you make an outbound call from your VoIP phones, we send that number and we send that name information. Now, once you click on Save Changes, that name information, we also transmit to the other carriers who support this feature. It takes them about 3 business days to update their servers. Sometimes faster, but usually 3 business days is what we say. Some caveats about the outbound CNAME, right? We can only control what we send out, right? The carriers between us and the phone number you're calling to, right? There's going to be several carriers in between. It's possible one between us and that destination doesn't support CNAME. So that means the CNAME information doesn't make it all the way through, right? The phone number will, but the name information won't. That receiving carrier, they get final say about the information that shows up on the phones on their network. So, for instance, when you're calling a cell phone, the cell phone carriers by default do not support CNAME, right? They'll pass the number through, right? My cell phone carrier, for instance, they want to charge me $10 a month to have the CNAME information show up on calls that come to my cell phone. I personally feel I'm giving them enough of my money, so I chose not to pay that extra $10 per month. You know, I've looked at a couple of carriers and they usually range anywhere from $4 to $12 per month for that feature. So most people probably don't pay it. So odds are when you call out from your system from your VoIP phone to a cell phone, only your number information is going to show up. So something to be aware of. When you call other VoIP phones or landlines, it should come through more often than not. The inbound CNAME, if you turn this on, that means if the person calling into your system has a name information associated with their phone number, it will show up on your staff members' phones if you have that on. E911, each phone number on your account, you can associate a different address for the purposes of 911. Right? So if you have staff working remotely, you can then have their personal addresses here for each phone number. So when they pick up their, and then you can assign it to their specific VoIP phone, right? So that way, if they happen to pick up their VoIP phone and dial 911, their address gets transmitted to emergency services, not your corporate headquarters. Hopefully that's never needed, but it's there in case it does happen. Prepend, this is a VoIP phone feature. This allows you to put text that shows up in front of the caller ID that shows up on your staff members' phones. So for instance, this is a phone number direct on a user. So if I type in the word direct, that word shows up on my VoIP phone whenever I get a call from this phone number. Right? So I get the word direct and then the person's phone number who's calling. So I know, oh, they called my direct number versus the main company number. Right? And then you would click on Save Changes. All right, then we've got the device box. You can add from spare, which is where you reuse a device or use a device that's not currently in use, or new device to add a new device to the account. First up is SIP phone, right? That physical hardware phone. You have these manufacturers to choose from. Right? Some have a lot of models. Others have like a dozen. Find the make and model of the phone that you're going to work with. Right? Click on the little icon here. Down here, you give it a name. I usually suggest something like Bob's phone or the location, like warehouse phone. Then you get the MAC address. This is unique to each device, right? Usually a sticker on the back of the phone. If the phone's plugged in, you can check the status or like basic settings, and it would show up there. You enter the information. You would then click on Create Device. This would disappear, and then you would click on Save Changes. Now, after you've done that, you want to click on the device box again. Right? Click on the device you just added, right? Then whatever you named it. Then over here, click on Advanced and select Miscellaneous. Down here where it says Allow Reprovision, you want to click on Unlock. It's going to give you the little green message saying it's unlocked. Right? Save changes, and then save changes again. Now, in terms of our dashboard, you're done. However, you need to log into that phone's web user interface. Get the IP address of the phone. Put that into your web browser. Hopefully your computer and that phone are on the same network. Once you do that, you'll begin to a login screen. Right? I guess admin, or what have you. It's slightly different for each phone manufacturer. You need to get to that phone's auto provisioning section and enter a URL. Now, I'm talking in generalities because it's slightly different for each manufacturer. But if you go in the show notes, there's the auto provisioning phones document. If you click on that, it's going to have instructions for each of these manufacturers and screenshots. So where to go and where to look, the proper syntax for that URL. A couple of the manufacturers, there's also some settings we want you to verify. But you go through those steps, right? Click on the phone, auto provision now. The phone's going to reboot a couple times. But after it's done rebooting, like at least 2 times, sometimes 3. But then it should show up as a green device on the account. Right? So then you can make and receive calls and you're all set. All right. Next up, cell phone. And this is the same process for landlines. Right? You give it a name. And then here in the number, you put +1 area code and number. No spaces, dashes, or parentheses. And then you would click on Create Device and then Save Changes. So here, right, I got a cell phone added here. This is what it looks like. All right, +1 area code or number. I'm going to go to the advanced options. Actually, the bottom 2 checked is the default settings for a new cell phone or landline added to the account. Going to go into how calls are handled or how the system handles. or how it behaves, right? So call comes into my user. It rings my cell phone, right? My phone rings. I pick up. First thing I hear is, this is a forwarded call. Please press 1. When I press 1, I'm telling the system, yes, I'm here, and yes, I want to take the call. Right? It then connects call, and I begin speaking to the person who calls into me. That works fine as long as I'm sent this phone number is actually going to a person. But let's say you contracted out with another company to handle your after hours calls, right? It's an automated answering service. They give you a phone number saying, hey, just send your calls to this phone number. We'll handle the calls, whenever you send them to us. So you would add that phone number as a cell phone or a landline device on your account. But you would want to come to this advanced options page, and where it says allow use of cell phone's voicemail, right, you want to put a check mark here and then save changes. So now when we send a call to this phone number, right, the automated answering service picks up the call, we connect the call, right? If I left this unchecked and we send the call to the automated answering service, right, they would pick up, but then that message is, this is a forwarded call, please press 1. Our system's waiting for them to press 1. The automated answering service doesn't know to press 1, so the call doesn't reach them, right? So they're not getting the calls. You might be missing business. Nobody's happy. So in that instance, you definitely want to put the check mark here. Now, you might want to put this too if you're actually sending calls to your cell phone. The caveat there is if your cell phone voicemail picks up, right? That's a pickup tone. So that inbound caller ends up on your personal cell phone's voicemail. Some people want that. Some people definitely don't. That's a personal preference. The other thing that can come up is this one. Keep original caller ID. So customer Mary calls into the system. It reaches out to my cell phone. On my cell phone, I will see customer Mary's phone number. I don't recognize it. And I'm like, I'm getting too many robot hours, or, I'm getting too many pitiful calls because election season's coming, what have you. So I might miss that, a business call, which would be bad. So I could uncheck this. So now when customer Mary calls, instead of seeing her phone number, go back to the dashboard here. This phone number I selected as my main company number, that's what shows up on my cell phone's display. Now, hopefully, I would recognize my main company phone number, and I'm like, oh, this is business call. Let me answer. All right, next up is soft phone. Whenever you add a soft phone or web phone to your account, you're going to get this warning message. Please read it at least once. Basically covers wireless VoIP technology and its interaction with 911. I.e., you might not be at the address that's associated with your phone number from your wireless VoIP phone, so you might not want to use it to call 911 when you're at a customer site versus just using your cell phone number, for instance. Once you've read that, go ahead and click close, and then a big box will show up here eventually. There we go. Now, this is a third-party soft phone. That is the default for adding a new device to your account or new soft phone device, right? Just because there's multitudes of third-party soft phones out in the world, so that's why it defaults to that. So if you want to use one of those, that's fine, right? Give it a name. Now, you're going to want to copy and paste the SIP username, right? So you paste that into that other application you're going to use. Then on the SIP password box, click here. It's going to reveal the SIP password. Copy and paste that. Please don't delete it. Please don't change it. Then copy and paste your account row, right? Those are the 3 pieces of information you would need to program or provision that other application. Now, if you want to use the VirtualPBX soft phone, then down here, right below where it says view configuration, there's a toggle, right? It says use third-party application. It's a little hard to see. But if you click on that, it's actually a toggle, so it flips it. So now it says use VirtualPBX application. And you still need to give it a name. Then you would click on create device and then save changes. Once you click on save changes, in this case, Dante would get an email saying his VirtualPBX soft phone is ready. In the body of the email, it's going to have his username and password that he would use just for the soft phone. And there'll be download links, so he can download the app to his cell phone or to his computer. You can use the app on both, right? Just not at the same time, right? So, for instance, for my workday, I use my soft phone on my computer. If I need to be away from my computer, like let's say I'm, have to go to a customer site, I would log out of the app on my computer, but then I would log into it on my cell phone. And that way I can still get calls on the app on my cell phone, right? I don't want to be logged in at both at the same time because that means that can cause problems in terms of me getting the actual calls. Next up, we'll go down to web phone. Yeah, you get that warning message. You just need to give it a name, and then you click on create device, and then save changes. The web phone has to be associated with a user because it uses your user information in order to log in. All right, user features. First up, caller ID number. You would use this for users that have their own phone number, and basically you want that when they make an outbound call to have their personal number show up versus the company number. Right? So you would click right here to enable, select the phone number on their user, and then save changes. So now, whenever I make an outbound call from my VoIP phones, this 408 number shows up as my outbound caller ID instead of the 775 number on the as the that's on my main number page, right? If I left this as off, then whenever I make an outbound call from my VoIP phone, it's that 775 number. The voicemail box feature, right, was enabled because I created the voicemail box with the user. This is the default setup for a voicemail box. Now, voicemail box on the system, they can hold up to 100 messages. After that, they are full and cannot accept any more. There are 3 ways to listen to a voicemail message, but only a couple ways to manage. Right? The first way to listen is because of this feature right here. Right? Attach voicemails to email. So when a voicemail is left, you get an email. In the body of the email are the date, the time, the phone numbers involved, the voicemail box involved. Then there's an MP3 attachment, right? Just click on it and listen to it on your phone or on your computer, right? But that doesn't automatically delete it from your system. Now, as an admin, I could click on this box here so that after that email gets sent out, the system will automatically delete the message, right? So that means I'm relying on my staff to be able to check their email, to listen to their voicemails, right? If for some reason they're not getting emails, they're going to lose voicemail messages. But this voicemail box will never get full. Now, in terms of other ways to manage your voicemail box, from a VoIP phone, pretty easy, right? Pick up that VoIP phone, dial *98, logs you right into your voicemail box, right? Enter your PIN number, listen to your messages. You'll have the option to delete the voicemail messages right over the phone. Even from a cell phone or landline, you can still call into your main number as long as it goes to a virtual receptionist, right? When you hear that main greeting play, hit *97. The system will then ask you for your voicemail box number and then your PIN number. Again, you can listen to it over the phone. And then the last way to check voicemail is up here under the menu option and click on your user portal. This defaults you to your voicemail page. So you can play it back, you can download it. But when you have this little box up here at the front, you can then change its status. All right, follow me is for users with multiple devices. Now, I currently have 3 devices on my user, so when a call comes in, by default, all 3 of them ring. If I didn't want that to happen, I would have to tell my system admin, hey, can we change how my devices ring? So then you would come to follow. Right, so first up, you need to enable the feature. Now, by default, all devices are set to do not ring because you have to tell the system which devices do you want to use. So you would then uncheck the boxes next to the devices you want to use And then you can click and drag the little green bars here to give it a ring time, or each device a ring time. Now, up here at the top, these are timestamps, right? It defaults to 120 seconds. I can change it down to 60, for instance. Then I can also click this distribute button, right? So now I'm equalizing the time between these two phones, right? 30 seconds each. I can also click and drag and click distribute again, and now my web phone's going first instead of the soft phone, right? If I want to revert it, just click and drag again, right? And then I would click on Save Changes. Now, if I'm part of a group, which we're getting to next, calls from the group ignore this feature, right? So if I'm in a group and I'm getting offered a call, all three of my devices ring, even though I have it set up for my cell phone to not ring, right? Likewise, if I just disable the feature, all my phones are gonna ring no matter what device, or whether it's coming to my user directly or from a group. Fax box. You can choose to have users have their own fax box if you want to. Right? You click up here to enable. Here, you have the option to use a spare number, buy a new number, or add a new extension. I recommend using a phone number as that gives the user the most versatility. Right? Unfortunately, that could increase your bill. So I can understand why you would want to use an extension. If you add a new extension, right, the person essentially has two extensions, one for calls, one for faxes. But you limit them, right? So the user is never going to be able to send a fax out because the system will try to use their extension number as the outbound caller ID, and that's going to cause it to fail. Potentially, you limit who can send them a fax because not everyone knows how to send faxes to an extension, right? Like from an analog fax machine, you'd have to either listen in, right? Go, okay, here's a greeting. Now enter the extension number and hit send fax. Or, if they know their fax machine, they know, oh, I can add these extra characters to give a pause and then the extension number, and then the system will send the fax machine will send the fax through. The other concern would be electronic fax services, right? Some of them, I don't know actually, I don't know of any off the top of my head, but I haven't looked at all of them. Don't have the ability to send to an extension, right? They let you put in a phone number and that's it. So some things to be aware of there. Conference bridge. So on this user, I've enabled the conference feature. You need to enter in a conference room PIN number for them. This is something they can change under the user portal. The enable video conferencing by default is disabled. You can enable it, but this is only good for people who are on your Dash account using their VoIP phones, right? If any other device calls into your conference room number, won't be able to make use of video conferencing. Call forwarding. You have three options: off, on, or failover mode. Right now, in general, call forwarding is for VoIP phones. Your staff members can turn call forwarding off or on their own. It's one of the things they can do under the user portal. They can also do it directly from their VoIP phone. Right? There's a set of feature codes for that. Failover mode is something a system admin has to set up. So this is an instance where, hey, their VoIP phone goes offline for whatever reasons, but you still want calls to be able to reach them. In that case, you'll click on failover mode. You'd enter a phone number, right? +1 area code and phone number, no spaces, dashes, or parentheses. So like their cell phone number. And then click on save changes, right? So their VoIP phone goes offline, call comes into it, the calls will be sent to this phone number that you designated. Now, my user already has the cell phone as one of my devices. So I don't actually need to make use of call forwarding at all on this user, right? So typically, someone who's only using VoIP, you want to have some form of call forwarding on, right? Probably at least the failover mode, right? But when they have a mix of devices like that, you likely don't need to make use of call forwarding at all. Right, customized call recording. When you first enable it, it looks like this, right? Basically, the system is waiting for you to tell it which kind of calls you want to record. Inbound internal means my coworker Bob called me. Inbound external, customer Mary called me. Probably want to record that. Right. Outbound external, I called coworker Bob. Right. And then outbound external, I called customer Mary. So we see this, right? The two external ones or all four. Now, your account includes some amount of data storage as part of your monthly plan price. Just signed up, you might want to double check the pricing page. You can also reach out to the services team. If you have heavy call volume and you're recording every call, typically I would recommend making use of AWS integration, right? So you may have to talk to our service team about having that added to your account. That also requires that you have your own AWS account. And that allows you to link your Dash account with us to your AWS account and keep your call recordings with them. Especially at high call volumes, it's going to be more cost effective to store with AWS. It's also something we recommend for people in the insurance field because I believe there's a requirement for them to keep call recordings for 10 years. All right. Oh, if you don't use AWS, you can check your call recordings. Go to recordings.virtualpbx.com. It uses your Dash login to log in, so then you can see your recordings there. All right, music on hold. You can choose to have users have their own hold music if you want them to. Right? You would click on enable and then upload.wave.mp3. Right? Now, you also have a pull down here so you can select media files that you already have on the account. So you would do this, for instance, for like have your salespeople have hold music that talks about, specials, right? Or promotions, whatever. Whereas, your billing staff, you probably don't need them to have talks about promotions or anything like that. So they might have a more general, your the hold music that you set up on the dashboard. Do not disturb, right? This is my users on do not disturb, so I'm not taking calls. The reason an admin would enable this on a user is if someone had to leave, right? They had a family emergency and they had, ran out the door. Right? Let me make sure they're just not taking calls, right? We don't need to have that extra phone ringing. Hot desking, this is a VoIP phone feature designed for like a shared office space or even hybrid scheduling. It basically allows other multiple people to use the same phone on different days. So basically, so you click here to enable. You enter a hot desk ID number. If you make use of 4-digit extensions, just make it their extension number. Probably the easiest thing for them or for your staff. Here, you can choose to require a PIN number or not. Right? Put a check mark and then enter the PIN number. So what this is I come in the office on a Tuesday. Right? I sit down at desk number 2. I pick up the phone that's there. I hit *11 and then click call. Right? The system will then ask me to enter my hot desk ID number. I enter that. It's then going to tell me calls will not be sent to this device. Right? So the rest of my workday, anyone who dials like my extension number will ring that phone number 2 that I'm sitting at. Right? So I can work at that computer, take my calls. End of my workday, I pick up that phone again. I hit *12, enter my hot desk ID, and to turn off hot desking on that phone. Right? I go home. Next time I come to the office, let's say that Friday, right? Angela's sitting at desk number 2. I say good morning. I sit down at desk number 4. Same thing. Pick up the phone, *11, enter my hot desk ID. Now calls are coming to me at desk number 4. All right, so that's users. Next up, we're gonna go over to groups. Right, little multi-person icon. Groups are departments, right? Ring groups or hunt groups is also how they're referred to. Up here at the top, you click on Add Group. Give it a name. You give it an extension number. Right? And then you would click and drag your staff members that you want to be in the group, and then click on Create Group. Once a group is created, you can click on the name. Right? So you can always change the name. And then here you have group call attempts. This is how many times the system offers a call to the members of the group. Right? So right now I'm offering it 2 times. There's little arrows here to the far right, so I can increase that or decrease it. And then click on Save Changes. There's also the option to delete a group. Oops. right down here if you no longer need it. Next up, I have the members box, right? This shows my staff members that are assigned to this group and how I'm offering calls to them. So right now I have what's called blast ringing or ring all, right? So it's ringing all the staff members at the same time. Whoever picks up the call first gets it. Now, in an office environment, probably pretty quick, easy for Jeanette to know if Dante picked up the call. When she picked up, she picked up at the same time but didn't hear anything. Right? She's like, oh, I can hear Dante talking. He must have got the call. In a remote working situation, that might be a little harder, right? Unless you're using something like Slack or Teams or what have you. Uh, so as a system admin, you'd want to, either check with your staff, or you can also look at the call logs to see that someone picked that up or not. Versus a staff member, panicking that there's something wrong with their phone or the group or what have you. Obviously, you can call our support team and they'll also look into it to see what's going on. Now, up here along the top, right, timestamps. Defaults to 120 seconds. I can change that to 60 if I wanted to. Now, in a ring all situation, that doesn't look any different. But again, you've got the distribute. So now it's ringing in order. Now, one thing to keep in mind is for a call to a group, it never skips anybody, right? So call comes in, rings Dante, right? He answers the call. If a second call comes in while he's still on that first call, he is still offered that second call for 20 seconds, right? Then it rolls over to me, right? So then I pick up. Third caller calls in where Dante and I are both still on calls. That third caller has to wait 40 seconds before it's offered to Jeanette, right? Because it's not going to skip us ever. Now, you can alleviate that a little bit by adjusting the sliders so you've got some more overlap. If that's a problem, right, you don't like that, I know if they're on a call, I don't want them to be off for the call, then you'd want to talk to our services team about the call center, right, the ACD queues, as that would skip people who are on a call. That's one of the advantages of queues over groups. However, queues cost money, groups are included. Now, if you have additional staff members, you can click on Add Users to add them to the account. Just like in the user feature, the Follow Me, right? You can click and drag to change the order, right? And then click Distribute. And you can, again, always adjust the sliders. And you click Remove if you need to remove someone from the group. Also, one oddity is if you delete a user from the account, it doesn't automatically delete them from the groups they're in. So you have to go in and remove them manually. The extension number, you can add multiple extension numbers to a group. Right, click Add Extension and then enter the extension number. Click on Save Changes. Phone numbers, groups can have their own phone numbers. Right? You have Add from Spare, Buy New. Just like on users, it's available 24/7. No hours of operation or anything like that. And then we have group features. First up is ringback. So call comes into the group, rings your staff members' phones, their phones start to ring. That sound is piped back to your inbound caller. That's what ringback is. Now, when you enable this feature, you can instead upload your own media file to play instead of that ringing sound, right? Kind of like hold music. .wave, .mp3, up to 1 megabyte in size. Now, the system will not loop the file for you. So you want to make sure that the file length or duration of the file matches or exceeds your total ring time in the group. Also, right, once your staff member picks up, the recording ends. So if there's something important that you need to have said to them, said to your inbound caller, you probably need to put it at the very beginning. And even then, your caller may not hear it all. Next action. So this is if no one in your group answers the call, what do you want the system to do with that call? Right? So up here, you click to enable. And then here is a pull down for things that are on your account, like other groups, a specific user, or a specific voicemail box. Right? You can even send them back to your main menu. Right? So anything that you've created on your account is basically available for you to choose. and then you click on Save Changes. Allow call forwarding. If you enable it, this allows your users to make use of call forwarding, i.e. they're not going to be at their normal phone, but they still want to answer calls from them. And then caller ID prepend VoIP phone feature. This allows you to put text or numbers in front of the caller ID that shows up on your staff members' phones. Again, the idea of prepend is to give people an idea of what the call might be about. I usually recommend making use of just the text, as that's typically easier for most people, right? And also differentiates it from the phone number of the person who's calling in. Some of our customers do make use of both. Again, that's a personal preference thing. But whatever you choose, then click on Save Changes. All right, so we've got users with devices, we've got groups. Now over here on the left, let's click on main number. So first up, main company numbers. Right? These are the default numbers that anyone calls to reach your system. Add from spare or by new if you want to have more numbers. You click unassign if you don't want a number here any longer, or from anywhere else for that matter. And you got the little gear icon to update the caller ID, E911 or prepend. Office hours strategy, you're either open 24/7 or you've got custom office hours. If you choose custom office hours for each day of the week that you're open, put a check mark in front of that day, and then select your open hours in 24-hour or military time. Down here at the bottom, which might be hard to see, you also have the option to be closed for lunch at the same time every day that you're open. Right? Just put a check mark here and set your lunch hours in that 24-hour/military time. Whichever you choose, then click on Save Changes. Then we have office holidays. If you're closed for holidays, put a check mark over here. Then over and to the right, click on Add Holiday. You have your option here for single day, date range, or advanced. Each one of these creates a new row. Right? So single day, you give it a name, choose the month, choose the date, and then Save Changes. Date range, give it a name, right? Start date, and then end date, and then Save Changes. Oops, not mean to do that. Advanced is like I have here for Memorial Day, right? You give it a name, choose the month. This second pull down, you have first through fifth as well as last, and then the day of the week, right? And then Save Changes. And if you need to remove a holiday, click on the trash can icon here at the far right, and then Save Changes. Incoming call handling. So this is how my main numbers, right, those four at the top, how are they handling calls during my open hours, during my after hours, during my holidays. If I had chosen to be closed for lunch, there'd be a lunch hour tab here as well. The options are basically the same. So first up, calls come in and they come to my virtual receptionist. The virtual receptionist is a link, opens up this big old window. Over here on the left, this is your main menu. This is what people press on their phones to navigate through your system. You click here to click Add a Route to give you a new option. Now, this first pull down, you've got 0 through 9, the star key, and the default action. The second pull down is things on your system, right? So you've got users, you got call queues if you're making use of queues, you've got your groups. This case, that's a virtual extension. You've got devices, etc., and voicemail boxes. On the right, we've got our greetings, right? The greeting is where you say thank you for calling, typically your business name, and then you want to give instructions, right? What do people press on their phones to get to places? First up, text to speech. In the box here, you can enter up to 250 characters, not words, but basically where you say, things like, thank you for calling, right? And then press 0, speak to a representative. Now, every time you type something in this box, right, you would click update, save, and save changes. You're going to have a greeting file called main open hours menu TTS, right? The system names it for you. So let's say I did this once, right? Then I realized, oh, I have a typo here. Or worse, I forgot, press 1 for sales. and I click update, save, and save changes again. Now I've got two files called main open hours menu TTS. Now, the TTS greeting is great for if you're just getting started. You're not exactly sure how things are going to route yet. That's fine. What I recommend is after you create one, on the left-hand side, there's the greetings tab, which we'll be getting to shortly. Find that main open hours menu TTS file, change the name, right? Just to something like main greeting one, right? Just so it's something you can recognize in case you need to flip back to it in a later date. You can upload your own file, right? .wav.mp3 up to 1 megabyte. Click on choose file, update, save, and save changes. Choose from existing recordings. This pull down will show all your media files on the account. Voicemail greetings, main greetings, ringback files. So that's why you want names you can easily recognize. Recorded over the phone. When the system says pick up a phone registered to the account, that means a VoIP phone. Now, if you want to use like your own cell phone, let's say you're waiting on the VoIP phones to arrive, that's fine. You can do that. But that means you want to come here to settings and then allow outside recording, turn that on, right? So the reason that it's pick up a phone, register the account, and this is off is that's a security feature, right? If it's a VoIP phone on the account, this is knows, oh, it's tied to this account, so it's okay for to use. When you turn on allow outside recording, you're saying anyone can call in and potentially change your main greeting over the phone. The next piece I think that they need, though, or next piece of information is the PIN number. This PIN number is specific to my open hours, right? So if I called in on Saturday where I'm normally closed, this PIN number doesn't work because that's my after hours, right? This is my open hours PIN number. So now, so let's say it's Tuesday, like today, I can call in, right? I hear my main greeting play. Once the greeting is playing, I enter the PIN number. The system recognizes that and changes to call recording mode. It walks me through recording my greeting over the phone. Once I'm done recording, and I click save, the file name, whatever my existing, so let's say right now it's main open hours menu TTS is my file that's in place. That file name stays the same, but the content has now been overwritten with my voice and whatever I said. I bring that up just because sometimes during holidays, right, people get in a rush and they overwrite their normal main greeting with a holiday greeting. So something to be aware of. Professional recording services. When you click order, this opens up a new tab and takes you to Snap Recordings, which is a totally separate company. They have like 100 voice actors and actresses to choose from. They bill you directly, typically via credit card. Once they're done, they send you the file via email. So you would come back up here to upload your own file and have it in place. All right. Under settings, number of retries on missed dial. This is how many times your inbound caller can make a mistake. So when I have it set to 1, that means my inbound caller has 2 total attempts. They have 1 built in and then 1 retry. Right, so 2 attempts. The dialing timeout, this is how much time the system waits after it hears a button press before it assumes the caller is done. Right? So in this case, let's say, person calls in and they press 7. The system waits 5 seconds. Says, oh, you're done. Checks to see if there's menu option 7. No. Is there extension number 7? If it's no. Then it goes back, okay, oh, they get a retry. Plays the main greeting again. If that person presses 7 again, right, and nothing else, in that instance, then they'd be, because I have a default action here, right, so they'd be sent to that default action. If I don't have a default action, the system would say, we did not recognize your entry, goodbye, and then hang up the call. Now, the reason that you would not want to have that default action is that you reduce the impact of robodialers. Right? If you have a default action, the robot dialer will spend that much more time in your system. All right, we already covered that. Oh, allow dialing extensions. By default, this is on, and that means if the person calling in enters a valid extension number, the system will transfer the call. Right? If I turn this off, that means my inbound caller can only press these menu options and nothing else. And then we have to suppress the playing of invalid entry. So, right, by default, that, hey, we did not recognize your entry message will play. I turn this on. Now that message, right, we did not recognize your entry, won't play. Right? And you would typically have that because you do have a default action and your system just transfers the call to it. Right. So any changes you make to your main menu, your setting, your greetings or your settings, right, you need to click save down here at the bottom right, and then save changes again here under incoming call handling. Right. After hours, I'm using the second option here. This is referred to as a live operator answer option. Right. This pull down, you can select anything on your account, right? Users, groups, devices. You can even select a media file if you want. Um, I usually say a group or user just because the idea there is you're giving someone a chance to answer the call first. If they're not able to, then you're sending the caller to the virtual receptionist. Now, this is my after hours receptionist, so my menu options are different than my open hours. I likely have a different greeting in place, right? And then the settings could be the same, could be different, right? Again, save changes. Holidays, I'm choosing this third option. This first pull down, again, you can select something on the system, user, group, device, media file, what have you, right? So the system will, and in this case, you have the extra option of skip the voicemail, right? So anything else, the system will offer it to it first. If no one picks up, then it would go to the voicemail box you designated, right? So for holidays, this makes sense. Hey, we're not here. Just leave us a message. We'll get back to you, when we're back open for business. Main conference number, you can have multiple conference room numbers, right? You can buy new or add for spare. You can also do a custom greeting, which is text to speech. Right? You would click to enable, then type in what you want the system to say. Even if you leave this disabled and you call your conference room number, the system will say, welcome to the conference, and then prompt you to enter the conference room number and then the PIN number. The main fax box number, oops, you can only have the one. Right? So that's why there's no option to add more. And then you have a fax box you can edit. The inbound notification email, right? Designed to put an email address. And that means anytime a fax comes through, this email gets sent, right? Or an email gets sent to this address. It's going to have the date, the time, phone numbers involved, the fax box number, and then a PDF attachment. Right? So they can just click on it and view the fax. Now, if someone dials your fax box number from, say, their cell phone, right? Now, most of us, when we hear a fax tone, we're going to hang up because that's an annoying sound. The email address here, it will get an email notification that there was a failed inbound fax attempt. Date, time, phone numbers, etc. Now, sometimes there'll be caller ID information next to the phone number. So if it says wireless number, that lets you know it was a misdial, right? Beyond that, you'd have to, double check and see if someone you were expecting a fax from say, hey, it didn't get through. The email permissions, this is lets you designate who can send a fax out on your fax box. Typically designed to put your company's email domain here. So anyone at VirtualPBX, they can send a fax out on this account, even if they're not a user on it. Right? You can also just put like a specific email address, and if you only want one person, send a fax out. But basically, this is so you can send faxes out from your system. Now, to send a fax out, you create an email like you normally do. In the to field of that email, you put the plus sign, the number 1, area code of the number you're faxing to, put the little @ symbol. Then you put your account realm, just right here. And then you just need to attach a PDF or TIFF file, right? So the system looks at the to field, it looks at the from field, it looks at the PDF attachment. Now, anything you type in the subject line or in the body of the email is not getting transmitted, right? Additionally, you can only send one attachment per email, right? So you want to make sure you don't have anything like a signature file attachment included in your email, because that could cause an error. Also, only send to one to address, right? So one phone number at a time, because that can cause issues as well. Right, auto attendance over here on the left. This is an add-on or a plan-specific feature. This allows you to create secondary attendance. You would use a secondary attendance for things like submenuing, one for English, two for Spanish, that sort of thing. Or, and what we have a lot of is you have multiple businesses, right? But you want them on the same account because you don't want why get billed at two different dates, for instance. So up here at the top, you would click on Add Attendant, give it a name, give it an extension number. The extension number is not something your customers typically would ever use, but your staff could use it to transfer calls to the correct business. Or like in my case, like if someone calls in and is speaking Spanish and they apparently can't speak English, I can't really help them. I could transfer them to my Spanish auto attendant so that way they can get to my Spanish speaking staff members more easily. Once an auto attendant is created, you can click on the name here. It defaults to this being unavailable in main menu, meaning it's a standalone attendant, i.e. separate business. If I wanted to make a menu option off of my virtual receptionist or as a next action option off of my group, I would click here on this because it's a toggle. Now it's available in main menu, right? So it's available as a menu option pretty much anywhere. And then here's the option to delete an attendant if I no longer need it. Because auto attendants could be for separate businesses, they can have their own phone numbers, right? You can add and spare or buy new. You've got the little gear icon here as well. Auto attendants can have multiple extensions if you want them to. Not strictly necessary, but they need the one just for that creation process. And then here under settings, you got the little gear icon. Takes a little while to load sometimes. And here you see open hours, after hours, and holidays. This is going to match what we set up under our main number, right? So your main numbers, your auto attendant numbers have hours of operation. Right? Any other numbers do not, right? But beyond that, they all have the option to go to virtual receptionist. So you would need to set up a greeting for them and menu options, right? And you have the other settings as well, right? Save, and then save changes. The devices tab shows your devices on the account. Now, you can add devices here. However, you can't assign devices here. So in the case of the soft phone, right, you still get that warning message, right? But because you can't assign it to a user, right, we can't send email credentials to them. So there's no option here to make it, say, to use VirtualPBX application. So if you want to use the VirtualPBX soft phone app, you have to add it directly to a user. You can also add a web phone here, but again, since it uses dash login information, adding it here does you no good. You want to add it directly to a user. Over here under edit, get the little wrench icon, advanced, the audio for a physical device, whether it's a third-party soft phone or in this case, a Yealink. The selected codecs, by default, they'll be blank, right? It'll use whatever is available on the device. But if you're having any kind of audio problem, the first thing to do would be come here and double check, and you want to make sure that G711A and G711U are over here on the right, which means, right, you might have to click and drag them over, and then click on Save Changes. External caller ID, you can set up one of your specific phone numbers to be the outbound call ID for just this device if you wanted to, instead of using your main number. Right? But the other major thing I want to talk about here is emergency information, right? So this is where you say, hey, for this phone, I want this phone number set up for its E911, and this is the address that's set up with it, right? So that way, from this VoIP phone, if the person dials 911, this is the address that gets transmitted to emergency services versus my corporate headquarters address. All right, next up, we have the greetings tab. This shows all your media files on the account, right? Main greetings, bring back files, voicemail greetings. Up here at the top, you can add new ones. Right? You can give it a name, click browse to find the file on your computer, click create greeting, it will upload it here. Cannot assign it anywhere, but it's available for you to use in the various locations. Name of the file, very self-explanatory, whatever it's been called. Right? Source, right? TTS, text to speech. Upload, uploaded file. Down here, I've got a recording, which means it was recorded over the phone. The play column, you can click on the button here, and the system will play back the media file directly in your browser. Right? This allows you to check and make sure it's still something you would want to use. Here, you got the download option. So you can download the file if for some reason it's not playing correctly in your browser. But the other reason I like the download file is for your typical main greeting that you use for most of the year. I recommend downloading the file so you have a backup. So you can always upload it back again if you need to, right? But just, again, just having 2 copies of it because it's something you probably want for most of the year. Got the little wrench icon here under edit. This is where you would change the name of that main open hours menu TTS file. So something you can recognize. And then for any greeting you don't want any longer, click on delete greeting, right? If you change the name, you would click on save changes. Next up, we have the numbers tab. Numbers in use, right? Numbers shows you where you've assigned them. You've got the gear icon. You can update the caller ID, E911, or prepend. Spare numbers are numbers you're not using. So a spare number is a number you can delete from your account, right? So once you've unassigned it from someplace, you can come here and say, okay, I don't like this number, and I don't need this one, or say this one. Now you look up here, I have this option to delete. It says, are you sure? I confirm delete numbers, and now I have less phone numbers on my account. And so now I'm not being billed for as many. You have the option to buy, right? Local toll free, which would just add more spare numbers to your account. A port would start the port process, and that just means you're moving a phone number from one carrier to another. In this case, like say from AT&T to VirtualPBX, right? Click on new port request, give it a name, choose local toll free, click next. Then you need to upload a PDF copy of your most recent bill from say AT&T, right? Dated within 30 days, right? You would click that and then keep following the process. In the following pages, the system will ask you for some information like the company name and the address that AT&T has on file for you. They'll ask you for the BTN, which is the billing telephone number. If you're only porting one number, use the number you're porting as your BTN. If you have multiple, you have to check with your current carrier. There's a place for a PIN number. Some phone numbers require a PIN in order to port out. This is typically something we see for the mobile carriers, but other carriers have adopted this as well. It's a security feature, right? It's just so that way a phone number doesn't accidentally get ported, because that can cause problems for people. So definitely for wireless phone numbers, you want to check with your carrier, but it's something also to look into with your current carrier just to verify, because if you needed a PIN number and it's not provided, it's going to get rejected, and that basically delays when the port will get completed. Toll-free numbers, if everything's correct, toll-free numbers take about 3 to 5 business days to complete. Local numbers have a wide variance. Some finish, complete by the next business day. Others take 2 to 3 weeks. The losing carrier doesn't have to respond right away for a rejection reason. That's why you want to make sure your information is as correct as possible. Voicemail boxes shows all your voicemail boxes on the account. Anything here that has an entry here under user, right? These are the voicemail boxes created with the user, right? So they're intrinsically tied. Now up here, you can create new voicemail boxes for like use with your groups or any call queues you might be making use of. Give it a name, give it a voicemail box number, give it a PIN number, click on create voicemail box. So like I'm going to click on the little wrench icon here next to support. That's what it looks like. Now, the voicemail box number is not the same as an extension number. Right? So if someone calls into my main number, enters 3333, they are not getting to this voicemail box. In fact, they'll get an invalid entry message. Right? The only way to get to this voicemail box is from my support group. Now, the voicemail box number and the PIN number is what you would use to call into the voicemail box to listen to voicemail messages or even change the greeting over the phone. Under advanced reading media, you can upload an MP3 or a WAV file to play as the voicemail box greeting. Right. You also have a temporary field. This is what you would use for the out of office or vacation message. If you've got two files selected, right, one in media, one in temporary, only the temporary plays. Right. The media file will not play again until temporary is set back to none. Recipients, your user voicemail boxes have a built-in recipient, the email address used for login. But any voicemail box you create on this page, you want to at least add one new recipient, right? Now you can obviously add multiple like I have here. So keep clicking add until you're done adding people and then save changes. And obviously you can click on the trash icon if you need to remove an email address. And then under advanced options, so once you have a media file in place and recipients, you can click on already set up. And that means like if you wanted to change the voicemail greeting over the phone, you want to uncheck this. So that way you can change it over the phone. Now down here, you can make sure that the voicemail box, especially one that you manually created, has the attach emails, voicemails to email option enabled. Now, and because this is my support voicemail box, right? I don't want this voicemail box to ever get full. So I've opted to delete the messages after notification. So basically, email goes out, system deletes the voicemail box, or voicemail messages from the voicemail box. That way, the voicemail box itself doesn't get full, but my staff members got the emails. Text forward, this is an add-on feature. This allows you to enable your phone numbers on your account to receive a text message and then send that message on. Right, so it's not for two-way communication. Up here, you would click on add number. The numbers that it will show here under the pull down will be your spare numbers. Right, so you basically enable text forward first and then assign it to like a user or group after. So choose a phone number and then choose either to enter in an email address or a webhook. Right, so webhook would be a feature you've had on the account, allows you to link your Dash account to other software. So like Zapier, for instance. Right, most of what we see is actually going to an email. And then you would click on virtual text forward. And you see here, right, these four phone numbers, if they ever received an SMS message, that the system will automatically email the relevant person saying, hey, you have a new text message. Here is what the text message said. Right, and then they can act accordingly. Virtual extensions, this is a plan-specific feature. This is giving you some additional functionality, right? Basically allows you to send calls to a specific device without actually adding a new user. Right, so you would click up here to add extension, you give it a name, you give it an extension number, you click on create extension. Now, once it's created, you would come here and add a device. So if I unassign this here, right, I need at least one device. Right, phone, cell phone, soft phone. Now, the soft phone, you still get the warning message, but again, you can only add a third-party soft phone because it's not associated with an email address. Right? And because this is not a user, right, you can add a virtual extension to a group. You cannot add it to a queue. A virtual extension is something that can be reached from the virtual receptionist, right? Because this extension number is valid, right? Dial 1007, it's going to come to this device. Right? Now, it can also be a menu option. That 0 through 9, you can go to a virtual extension. It doesn't have its built, there's no user feature, so there's no voicemail box associated with this user either. So that's something to keep aware of. The call logs shows your call history on the account. Right? Green arrow to the right is a call that came into the system. Yellow arrow to the left is call going out from the system. You can click on these to get like further information. So this call came in and went to voicemail, right? Because it wasn't actually offered to a device, and I know that because I made this call. You have today, if you got this week, and you also have this month. These are all you can download as CSV files to get a better idea. If you're good with spreadsheets, you can get a better idea what's going on. Actually, let's go. Oh, custom, you can go back to a specific date range. Go back to, say, January. And so here you see this call came in and there's two legs. This is the first leg is call coming to the system. Second leg is call from the system to the device, right? So you can see here it went to that particular device. The little fire extinguisher icon, this reports the call, creates an email for you, pre-addressed to support@virtualpbx.com. It's going to have the technical details. Please type in the context. Right? Just from the technical details, we may not know exactly why you're sending the call in. For instance, if you're having an audio issue, that's not going to show up in the technical details. It will just show up that, oh, the call ended normally. Now, under the custom field, you can go back up to 12 months. If you need to go back further, you can reach out to our support team and they'd have to escalate that up to your engineers. But the engineers can only go back up to 18 months. After that, the data isn't available. So if you need to keep your call logs for a compliance purpose, you'd probably want to do this on a monthly basis. Feature codes. And these are ways for your VoIP phone users to access Dash features directly from their VoIP phone. Obviously, you can always come here and see them. These will show up under the contact list under the user portal, which will show up when we get there. And the show notes, there's a link to the support pages. You can do a search for the feature codes or the phone commands cheat sheet, which has the context help. Give you a little better idea of how to make use of them. That's the dashboard. Next up, we have blacklists. This allows you to create a list of phone numbers that you're blocking from reaching your staff members. You click Edit Blacklists. You click Add to create a new list. I'm just going to choose an existing list. You give it a name, and then choose, are you blocking anonymous calls or not? Right? By default, this is off, meaning those calls would come through. Right? An anonymous call just means we're not getting valid caller ID being displayed to us. Beyond that, under the list of existing numbers, click on Add Number, put +1 area code and phone number. Right? No spaces, dashes, or parentheses. Keep clicking Add until you're done. Then you would click on Save. Up here at the top, click on Back to Settings. Make sure your lists are over here on the right, so you might have to click and drag. Even if it's already on the right, down here at the bottom right, click Update. So now any phone numbers that are on these lists, they can reach your system, right? It'll show up in your call log. They're not going to get through from that point on to get to and ring your staff members' phones. Right? So in the call logs, it will show up as rejected. Call recording. This does one of two things. This count is set up with the AWS, so it's taking me to the AWS display where I can change the date range. And then I can see my recordings and I can change, like, I just want the inbound calls or the outbound. If you're not using AWS recording, the call recording will open up a new tab and take you to that recordings.virtualpbx.com where you use your Dash login to view your recordings there, play them back, download them, etc. Monitor is a plan-specific feature or add-on feature. This allows you to see the status of your staff members. Doesn't matter what device they're using, right? So here I've got the employee look, so I can see all available or who's busy. I also have a device option to see which devices are in use or who's available. Active inbound calls, they would show up as each would have their own little blue box and showing who among your staff they're speaking to, right? And then the park calls, if any of your staff members made use of the parking feature codes, then the park call would show up here, would have their phone number and their parking spot number. Reports, this opens up a new tab. Takes you to reports.virtualpbx.com, which has its own login information. The reports is an add-on feature or on specific plans. In the show notes, you can look at the advanced reporting demo, and that can give you an idea of what you can be done. It's basically creating your own reports. Voicemails, this lets you get to any voicemail box on the account. And so, like if you get reports that a voicemail box is full, right, as a system admin, go to that voicemail box. You can see the messages, right, play them back. You can download them, put the little check mark here. Now, as a system admin, you can also move a voicemail to a specific voicemail box, or you can change its status. Integration AWS, right, is a feature that needs to be turned on. And this is what you would use to link your Dash account to AWS. From AWS, we need the access key, the secret access key, as well as the bucket. Basically, after that, your call recordings, your faxes, or your voicemails can be stored on AWS. Call center, add-on or upgrade feature. If you look in the show notes, you want to look at the ACD Queues Pro demo. That's what the call queues were previously called. So if like you ever called your bank and it said, please wait while your call is handled by the next available agent, right? As a caller, you entered in a call queue. So queues, you have your staff members assigned are agents. They can log themselves in and out of the queue. They can mark themselves away like when they go to lunch, right? When calls come into the queue, it's offered to an available agent. If they're already on a call, the queue doesn't offer another call to them. It just goes to the next available person or waits for someone to become available. You have additional routing options, things like round robin, right? Equalizes that over time. Most idle, who's been waiting the longest gets the next call, that sort of thing. Additionally, the call center allows a manager to eavesdrop in on calls, right? So they can listen in, they can whisper to their staff member to help them out, or even barge in if things are getting out of control. If you're interested in that, you definitely want to speak to account services. Dynamic caller ID, this is a upgrade feature or add-on or a plan-specific feature. This allows you to create rules to change the outbound caller ID of your VoIP phones based on the rules you create. So here, for instance, you give it a name. I chose this 702 number on my account. And the rule is whenever my staff members dial a 702 area code phone number from their VoIP phone, the system will automatically change their outbound caller ID to the 702 number I selected. Right? So it looks like a local call. The other option is you create a feature code, right? So now my staff members need to dial star 951, right? Then the area code and phone number they're reaching out to. When they do that, the system changes the outbound caller ID to this 916 number. Faxes, this is your fax manager. You can get to any fax box on your account. First up, your inbound faxes. Shows you the faxes that have come into your system, the date, the time, phone numbers involved, and you can download the file as needed or click on the box to delete it. Outbound faxes, right? Shows faxes that we tried or we did send out or tried to. Now, when you see a failover, you can mouse over it. In this case, it says timed out, waiting for initial communication. So what that tells me is the phone number is a valid phone number, but we didn't hear fax tones when we tried to reach it when we connected. Right, so maybe it was a wrong number, maybe it was like a typo in the phone number. Right, so if you see a failure here, that means there was a problem with the communication between us and that other phone number. If you click on the email to fax logs, if you see an entry here, that means the system had a problem processing the request for some reason. Now you can see the email addresses involved, so you make sure they're the proper format, right? But click on the little eyeball icon here, and you see here you have error converting attachment. In this particular case, you'd want to try to resave the PDF or export or download as PDF, see if that changes the parameters of the PDF a little bit, and then try again. Right, there's some wiggle room within the PDF standard or format rather. Another thing we can see is like no valid attachments. Right? Someone forgot to attach the file, or they didn't attach a PDF or TIFF file. Number manager, this just takes you to your spare number page. Let's skip down here to the bottom. SMS registration. This is talking about registering your for SMS purposes. Yeah, purposes. So especially if you just signed up with us, if you're interested in the virtual text feature, right, making use of SMS on your business account, you definitely need to talk to account services. They will talk to you about the SMS registration. I believe there is, as far as I know, there's a one-time setup fee. I don't remember what that is, so I don't want to quote or misquote a price. So you want to definitely talk to them about that. But once you've started the process, which you do here under Start Registration and click on the Register button, then you've got the registration status. You can see what's going on. And you'll also get emails if there's a problem. I believe it's compliance@virtualpbx.com. All right, webhooks. Plan-specific feature, linking your Dash account to other software. In the show notes, you can look at the Introduction to Zapier webinar, which covers some of this. You can also go to developer.virtualpbx.com to see sample code of what we've done to link Dash to other software, like for Slack, for instance. And you can talk to our sales staff for more information on that. And then the user portal. Every user has access to their own user portal. It will always start them off on their voicemail tab, right? So they can listen to their voicemail messages, delete them, etc. Right? Clicking on the box in front, and then just pull it down to choose what they want. They can go to their call history tab. They can choose the date range and see the calls that they have made and received. Now, this is not nearly as detailed as the call log, right? So if you need details, then as an admin, you'd have to go to the call log. The fax tab only works for users that have their own fax box, right? But they would see their fax history. Contact list shows everything on your Dash account, right? Other users, auto attendance, feature codes, etc. Something to use for like if you need to transfer somebody. The conference tab. So on the right-hand side under settings, this is where your staff members could set up their moderator and participant PIN numbers. These two numbers should be different, right, just for security purposes. Now, they can choose to have people join muted or deafened, as well as play entry or exit tones. While in a conference, the little plus icon here lets you invite other Dash users to your conference. You can lock a conference so other people cannot come in. You can mute everybody, unmute everybody, and then end the conference. Also, while in a conference, each moderator has their own little blue box. Each participant has their own little blue box. And that's important because then a moderator can mute a specific person or even kick out a specific person. And then we have the settings and devices tab. Oops. And right here is where your staff members can enable call forwarding on their own. They just put the little check mark here. Then they enter +1 area code and number of where they want to send forward their calls to, and then they click save. Right? So right now, I am call forwarding. Right? When I'm done with it, I just uncheck it and click save. And now I'm not call forwarding. And then beyond that, I can see my statuses. And that is everything. Looks like I ran a little long today, so I do apologize for that. As I mentioned before, we do record these trainings, so if you need to go back and review it, you can always come back and do so or share the link with other staff members. Beyond that, I thank you for your time today, and we will be back next Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific. I hope you have a wonderful day.